Welcome back. The Supreme Court handing down a major ruling in favor of the Second Amendment. And at issue here was a New York law which says you should be allowed to carry a gun in public for self-defense, but only if you have a special reason. This comes as the Senate just passed gun control legislation tonight. So let's talk about this with former Assistant U.S. Attorney David A. Katz up live with us here on Fox 5. Let's talk about that Supreme Court ruling, David. Was this a surprise today?
No, Jim, it's great to be with you. And no, it's not a surprise. I actually predicted this on your show several months ago when the case was being argued. This was predictable given the composition of the U.S. Supreme Court now. Now, a lot of people in New York, California, other places are kind of outraged by it because they're really worried about gun violence on the street. What's going to happen is that before, you needed to show a special need in order to get a license in a state like New York. Now, the Supreme Court just said that that's not constitutional under the Second Amendment to require a person in order to get a license to show special need. So basically, if you say I live in a high crime area, I'm worried that the police aren't going to protect me, I want to carry a handgun, New York's going to have to allow you to have a license, to have a permit. And so people are worried that while you may restrict certain spots like bars and Yankee Stadium and so forth, there'll just be a lot more people running around with guns. And statistically, when there are more people running around with guns, there's more gun violence, including gun violence against victims. It's not just all heroes protecting other people. There's a lot of people get drunk or they freak out and they just start shooting. And so the states are very worried that there will be more gun violence, Jim.
We know that the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, was not pleased about this. She pointed out the fact, obviously, we had that mass shooting in Buffalo back in May. When you look at this, the impact it has on other states, there are about 6 states with laws very similar to New York. One of them is Maryland, where we are right now. How quickly do you see action on the state level to conform with what the Supreme Court said today?
Well, you know, while the NRA is rather weak and having its own problems, gun rights activists are really, they're at a high crest. Of course, they're celebrating this, and you can expect that they're going to go into these courts in states like Maryland and assert that by the same token that New York's law fell, that Maryland should fall. They're going to attack laws in California, too. I mean, it's the yin and yang of our political and legal system, right?
Mm-hmm. When we had this Senate bill that was passed this evening, I know that there are 2 separate issues. It is striking to see you have one part of the country moving in one direction when it comes to guns, and then you have the Supreme Court decision that sort of goes the opposite way. Does this make it harder for law enforcement? Does it make it harder for the court system moving down the road?
Well, the interesting thing is that law enforcement breaks from the so-called law and order U.S. Supreme Court majority on this one. The cops around the country, the federal agents want there to be less guns on the street because really and truly it's a problem. I know people think the cops won't come and protect me and I'll come and protect myself. But the reality is that it doesn't work that much for self-protection as people think, but they believe that. Law enforcement tends to be on the other side. I think the bill in the Senate and the House will survive. I think Biden will sign it. I think there'll be some provisions in it, though, Jim, that will be attacked. Yeah. If you look at the history and tradition only of gun bills, this was not a thing back at the time of the Revolution to have red flag laws and things like that. So I imagine they'll attack the red flag laws and other things like that when they do become law and they're more prevalent in the states. I think that gun rights activists will attack them on the same Second Amendment grounds that there's not a history, you know, from 200 years ago of red flag laws, and therefore they violate the Second Amendment. I don't think that argument should work, but I think it may.
Well, we're going to see what happens. Again, this doesn't set up red flag laws on the federal level, but it incentivizes them on the state level. We'll follow this as it develops. David A. Katz, always appreciate the perspective. Thank you.
Great to be with you. Have a great summer.